who have difficulty acquiring knowledge visually. And we are in a time where accessibility is really important in being able to create opportunities to invite more people into the art, right? So you told me once that your parents are educators in the area of special education. Did it cross your mind that this mixed approach in your exhibition, in fact, honors and pays homage to their work by inviting more areas of exploration for the viewer?
I don't think it consciously crossed my mind, but I think it's something that is always in the back of my mind of, you know, how will people interact with my work? And then how am I going to be inclusive to that? And how will it be for a variety of viewers and people? And besides that, my parents are both in the field of special education. My dad is also hard of hearing, and my brother and my sister. So I always have these thoughts of how will this be accessible?
I think it is a powerful takeaway from this exhibition, because inviting people in from every kind of background, every opportunity to be in space with this is exactly the kind of forward motion I want more artists to take in their work, as well as gallerists that offer opportunities for artists to show this kind of work that is accessible in multiple ways. So I just thank you for that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think because myself too, I have worked in education a lot with children too. I think that's also in my mind of, you know, I wanted things to feel low and like a living room and a lived space, but that also brings children in a way that I don't think like museum institutions, except for if they have like a family room, a children's room, aren't usually for children, even though so many of the guests and visitors will be school children on field trips. And that's kind of wild.
Right, because there's almost like a wall that separates them from actually accessing that art in a new way. Yeah, I 100% agree with that. So I don't know how many of you out there, I would say turn on your cameras and raise your hands, have played Mahjong. This is not a game that I grew up playing, but it is a game I want to know now because I've been invited in. Thank you. But what I wanted to learn a little bit more about Mahjong. I wanted to know, like, what is it saying when you play this game? And what I found fascinating was when you are invited in to play a game of Mahjong, you are inviting a new friend. You are inviting friendship. Like, it actually symbolizes this invitation of friendship. And I don't know of a better time to say that we need to start, everybody, let's all get a Mahjong set and start inviting people in for these friendship moments. But the other piece of it was that when I did a deeper dive, I said that one of the things that I found was that Mahjong actually is meant to represent family. And you've told us this, how many times in like the creation of the work, how you're representing who you're bringing to the table in the context of all of your pieces. There's incredible pieces of your family in multiple areas of you together. One of the things that is so interesting about that family piece for me is I wanted to know, was the creation of the Mahjong an homage to Grandma?
I think it definitely was. And it was also because like a few months ago, it was a pretty big thing in the Asian community that some white ladies made their own version of Mahjong, and they put their own imagery on it because they didn't feel like any Mahjong sets suited their aesthetic. And it was pretty upsetting to many people, and that they took something with such cultural meaning and just erased that and then put pretty meaningless imagery on it. It was like cherries and watermelon and just things, cutesy things. And I was like, well, if they can make a Mahjong set, like I can make a Mahjong set. Yeah, so I think it's both ways. I think Mahjong in that way also, it says a lot of things about the difference between Eastern philosophy and Western philosophy, because it is essentially very similar to poker, except unlike poker, where there's a differentiation in value between the cards of an ace is worth more than a king, which is more than a queen. Every tile is equivalent in value. So there's not this same hierarchy that Western philosophy often so puts in every aspect of our lives.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about that appropriation of this like true cultural moment for your family and for the history of the game. Let's move on. I want to talk about some other pieces because we have this incredible unstretched piece that's behind us, but you've worked in a number of mediums actually. So we touched a little bit on the ceramics, and there are some beautiful screen prints. Okay, so the screen printing.
They're not actually screen prints.
They're dry point. That's a dry point etching. I was gonna get to that. So when you walk through, you're gonna be like, oh, I think it's a screen print. I think it's a screen print. And yet you're like, no, wait, let's dive into it a little bit more and really understand what that is. So dry point etching, you wanna tell our audience what that is a little bit more and why this was the area of practice for you.
Drypoint edging is just if you're familiar with printmaking, it's just a form of intaglio where you're making scratch marks and forcing ink into those scratches and then wiping it off, and you're left with your line work. I'm kind of using it in a way that's layered with monotypes, so I'm just using thin pieces of plastic for my etching, and then I'm cutting them out and essentially creating a collage composition, and then I print it in. They're all unique prints, and I just print them in one pass through the press on a flat plate, which is how I make them.
I think what's so interesting about this is I kind of assume like if you say the term screen printing, it encompasses like everything that you've ever seen that has to do with printmaking, right? And that's not the case. So that's why I wanted to play a little ignorance in the beginning, like, oh, it's a screen print. No, when you come in, we want to know a little bit more about the background of the practice that you're doing.
A lot of people think they're paintings too when they first look at them.
Because there is an aesthetic to it that I can totally see that as the way that people, especially with some of the areas where it could look like, oh, you just wanted to do a brush stroke, right? I think one of the things that I love about printmaking period is this ability to play. Like there's experimentation play that happens in printmaking. And I think it's very obvious in the work that you're doing with this use of really vibrant hues, and this embrace of collage techniques and print combinations that you just discussed. Now, when you were creating this series, I'm just curious if you could walk us through a little bit of the color story, because I want to point out that we had this conversation, so we're talking about this, and the idea of the coloring was sort of a memory journey for me. It reminded me of like Crayola crayons and like how I would have an opportunity to just take a piece of scratch paper and just draw out something as a kid, and like Crayola came with so many different backgrounds of hues and how it really was trying to speak to anybody and everybody. There's always like a narrative that's happening, and as a narrative artist, I want to know like what is the narrative that you're bringing to the table in the color story that you've presented here. And you won't be able to see it, but some of the pieces in here are like hyper colored yellows and pinks that really pop off the paper. So if you have not had a chance, again, please take a look on the website and come inside the gallery to see the art. But let's talk a little bit about the color story.
Yeah, so I think Crayola crayons definitely influenced me, and just generally the colors of my childhood. I mean, I learned colors like so many of us through my 64 pack of Crayola crayons. And I think it's just colors that are reminiscent of my childhood, that feel like childhood as well, even if they're not specifically maybe a popular color of my childhood, but that feel like childhood. And I think some of the vibrancy, some of the thinner, translucent or transparent layers of color is, I want it to be reminiscent of childhood, with also without being overly sentimental either. So I think I still want to give it, this really vibrant life in the here and now without just kind of being sentimental about childhood, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. So we talked a little bit about what are some of the key points, the key themes that are present here, and loss is one of them, right? We've touched on that a little bit, and I want to touch on it again. So as a narrative artist, it's very evident in your work that you have taken moments of your life to create this ongoing narrative event that has unfolded over time, that has been in not just the piece behind us, but in all these pieces, there's a story that's happening that's over decades, right? And what I want to know is this powerful visual imagery that you've been able to bring has evoked so many emotions for me as a mixed race person that identifies as someone who exists in these liminal border dwelling spaces. What I found was that it really is capturing some universal truths though, as well. There's not just a Chinese cultural identity that's present here. There are things that we all are a part of. There's this great piece that has corningware in it. How many of us grew up with our grandmother's corningware and we still have it? Again, that invitation to sort of the everyday mundane that is present. You know, strainers, we use these in our everyday life, but the way that you've presented these mundane objects is in such a way that evokes this cultural truth that we all sort of exist in, and actually connects us in a way that maybe we haven't really sat and thought through. But with this theme of loss that's present in all of the work, how important then is preserving your work for future generations, specifically generations of mixed identity folk?
I think it's important, and I think it is about preservation through the objects, because these objects, I think some of them have such a presence in my work because they have outlived the people who are associated with them. So they are already preserving memories. Lots of them are vessels in themselves and what the actual objects are, which provides a space to hold and in a metaphorical space in my work. And I think that, you know, like with this painting and it being so much about memory, and then me trying to visualize my memories and capture the space of memory, this painting then allows me to preserve those impressions and those memories and kind of then add a piece to the family archive. Because I think, additionally, we haven't specifically talked about it, but sort of the family archive and archiving in general is very tied into my work with sort of the aspects of family photography that come into it. And I realized I was not completely focused there, because I realized, I don't know if we said, but you can see a video and more images it'll work, so it's maybe less confusing on Subac's. Okay, it's on the share, okay.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Already on it. That's what you get with Subac. I love it. Okay, perfect. So I want to have a little experiential moment. Are you up for it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Let's go for it.
So we've talked a lot about the piece that's behind you. What I want you to do, and I invite all of you to do this with any object that you have in your home, whether it's a painting or a piece of ceramic or something. What I want you to do is I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to try to describe the piece that's behind you.
Okay. So the piece behind me is on a long piece of unstretched canvas that serves as sort of a panoramic view of memory of my family's kitchen space. You see figures kind of appear in and out, and areas of clarity and obscurity interplaying together, I think, in a rhythmic way for you to move down the painting. And then certain objects, such as a lamp hanging from the top, repeats to sort of bring in a feeling of cyclical movement and cyclical time. And it uses a lot of rub paint and thin layers of paint to sort of try to reference the space of memory and how memory fades in and out, and how you can visualize a space in memory that might feel clear at first, but then sort of fades around the edges. And then the painting takes you through different moments and around the space of my childhood kitchen. And then it's kind of bookmarked with very similar moments at either end at the kitchen table, and then fades out on either side.
What colors?
The colors are vibrant, I would say, but muted in some areas. I would say they're familiar colors that have a comforting way about them. Nothing specifically too harsh or overly vibrant, I would say, and colors, I think colors that, even though they're in thin layers, they feel lively and of a lived space.
What is one object, eyes closed, what is one object that is referenced multiple times?
On one of the cupboard doors, there is a note card with a list of phone numbers, contact numbers, such as emergency numbers for myself when I was a child.
Okay, you can open. So the reason I ask this question is because so often memory is fleeting, right? There are scientists that are working on memory and what do we remember? How much of the detail do we remember? Is it superficial? Is it something that we can keep with us, exact memory in 1 to 2 to 3 months after something has happened or something we've created? And what I found fascinating is when you described it, it was not necessarily there are exactly 3, my mother, my father, my grandmother, my siblings are in this image. It wasn't like a step-by-step of the imagery there. It was more the feeling that is evoked from the work that you did. And so the reason I asked about that is because I think it's really important that when we touch on things on memory, that we think about like the importance of capturing those memories and holding on to them, and then how that reference back to those memories can really invoke and create an opportunity for us to sit in space with that memory potentially in a different way than if we were just trying to remember it. That visual aspect, the tactile aspect of memory that is very present. I mean, how many times have you driven by someplace and there's a smell that has evoked a memory, right? And so you've created memory moments throughout your exhibition that I think are just such a beautiful homage to the people in your life, these important moments that have stuck with you. And I think there's a push and pull that's also happening with these memories, right? We're having to try to remember exact things, that are a part of something, and a photo can only capture so much of it. When you're working in mixed media and multimedia, you have an opportunity to sort of bring in nuance that is maybe not as present in just a quick snapshot in a photograph. Now, I'm not dismissing photography and saying that you don't get that in there. In this case, we're just referencing the work that's on the wall, right? Okay, so thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, and I feel like this was done in 2019 and was rolled up in my closet for 2 years. So it's, I have one memory of the painting now, the memory of the painting's capturing, and it's kind of like I'm becoming reacquainted with the work all over again now, in a way.
Great. Keeps it live. Okay, so talking with you is so wonderful. It's just so great to have this opportunity to sit in space with you again, share the work that you're doing. And I just wanted to bring this quote into this space. There's a local curator, Tricia Hearing, who had this exhibition, Rituals, that was called Rituals of Regard and Recollection. And Tricia used this quote that I thought was so poignant for this moment. I'd love to share that with you, and I'd love to share that with you. We are born and have our being in a place of memory. We chart our lives by everything we remember, from the mundane to the majestic. We know ourselves through the art and act of remembering. Memories offer us a world where there is no death, where we are sustained by rituals of regard and recollection. Bell hooks. Now, this location of relationship to family, to memory and perception is very present in this quote for me, right? How much does an exact memory moment matter in the art that you're creating?
I don't think it matters that much. Because I think so much of it is trying to capture and remember what I cannot, to getting into that liminal space, in that place of loss. So I think so much of that is impossible in what I'm trying to do, and not of the most important. It's more about grounding myself with the work, I think, than trying to capture a specific memory or specific object exactly like it is, and it's more of my impression of it and how I connect to it.
So I want to be thoughtful of time and make sure that we have an opportunity for our audience to ask some questions. But I'm going to ask one more before we get to that point, okay? So get your questions ready. We are excited. The last question that I really want to ask is, what do you want the audience to take away from your exhibition?
I always struggle with this question.
So it's a good one to ask.
Yeah, and I get asked it over and over again, and I know it's coming, but I don't feel like I've resolved my answer ever. But I think I just want people, I just want people to connect to it. I want them to feel a familial space of whatever that might be for them, and not just me, and whether that's, their childhood home or not, or somewhere they found for themselves. I think I want people to connect and build a narrative for themselves of how they move from piece to piece, move with the objects, view the objects. And I think I want people to sort of, enter that narrative I'm suggesting, and then build in with their own narrative and bring in their own lived experiences.
I think you hit it on the head, because that was exactly the experience I had, and hopefully the experience many of you had. All right, let's get to some audience questions. Allison.
I was just gonna give us a little tutorial. If people want to raise their hand, then I will call out their name and then make sure that they're unmuted. But you can also unmute yourself once I say your name. So if anyone has a first question.
And hi everyone, thanks for coming.
So nice to see all these familiar names. We would love to see your faces. You are welcome to get on screen. It's really okay. Hi, Ellen.
Ellen, go ahead.
Thank you. Oh, this is such a pleasure. I actually love this format and seeing both of you on screen in the same frame. That's so great. So Anika, I'm curious about the ceramics because, as you know, I'm a big fan. And I was curious have you started inviting ceramicists or others really familiar with the medium to stop by? And I'd be curious what responses have occurred, and if you're thinking about making more ceramics and how that might look. I'm just really curious about that path and how it's unfolding for you.
Definitely, Ellen. I haven't really talked to too many other ceramicists. I have sent some pictures to my undergrad ceramics professor. She's really the only person I've talked to. I have talked to a couple of local ceramicists. Toby Miller makes great work, and I've connected with them, and I definitely plan on making more. I already have it planned in my head, and I will begin making more in June, so look out for that. I have it ready to go. And Ellen is taking a ceramic home with her, so thanks so much, Ellen. I am so happy you're gonna have it.
I am absolutely smitten with the piece and I cannot wait. I'm going to put it in my office.
Well, Ellen, I want to also add to that, everybody needs to hurry up and get in here because almost all of her ceramic pieces have sold. So,
I am not surprised. Not at all.
Yeah, but going back to that piece of cordonware, I think like one of the first pieces that I want to make some like my flat vases, but flat cordonware. We'll see where that goes. Often what I say I'm gonna do is totally not what happens. So
as art.
so you may or may not see that.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you so much. And it's so nice to see your face.
Thanks.
All right, who is next? No pressure. All right, I'm just gonna say go ahead, M. Banning, which I'm assuming is not your actual name.
No, it's Michael. Thanks.
Okay, hi, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah, Anika, just because we're talking about the vases, because I was really intrigued by those also. And I'm just curious if you can talk a little bit about maybe your thoughts behind the flattening of the form, because that's what really kind of caught my eye with those.
Yeah, well, one is because I am not technically good at, I cannot throw. Like this, they were never going to be thrown vases because I can't do that. And two, I think just because I think it related to my prints a lot better and working on those flat sheets and how I was sort of building that collage aspect with the prints. And I wanted, like I was looking at a lot of images of Chinese vases and Chinese ceramic ware and porcelain. And I wanted it to be visually recognizable as referencing that without being it too. And I think having it flat, having it more reference drawing is more true to me.
Let's see an
Oh, and
example here.
Michael, for those of you who don't know, Michael was my mentor in grad school, so he's very familiar and helped me through this long piece. So thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Tiffany. Look at, we have like the most beautiful Vanna White moment happening here. I may have just aged myself hard with that response.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Is there any other questions that absolutely need to be answered right at this very moment? I'm scanning. I might miss someone.
Well, as you're looking, tell everybody, what are you currently working on and what's coming up? Because Carolyn alluded to the installation with the Brooklyn Center Transit. Was it Brooklyn Center Transit Center?
Yeah.
Brooklyn Center Transit Center, that's a mouthful. But what, that opens June?
June 26th, it will open. It's not installed yet. That's my big thing for June, which is like the stress in my life right now. Yeah, so that will, I think that it will open the 26th, and there will be some kind of unveiling the 26th. That exact time and stuff is still to be determined.
Oh, Masami, do you want to ask your question out loud?
Sure. I was curious to find out if we, whether collectively in the Zoom room or individuals or others, could come play Mahjong at SUVAC.
Yeah.
Masami is on. Come on. Well, let's set up some time and make that happen. We like share space and play a game is like such a foreign thing these days. So yes, please. That's a great question.
Yeah, open gallery hours this weekend. And if you're playing it, yes, you do have to flip the tiles over. I know they're not right, they don't make sense, but it was some people more familiar with the painted tiles. And so, you know, maybe I'll pull it out, but there is one extra tile in there. So you can there's one extra flower tile. You can either set that aside or play with it as a wild tile. That is up to you.
A little bit of nuance. Yeah.
Now I have a question. I want you to make a video of how to play Mahjong because I'm ignorant and didn't even know of this game until you were installing the show. So now I want you to demonstrate it for everyone in a how-to video as a farewell, so we can always have the game.
Not the most knowledgeable Mahjong person as we touched. I learned from my grandma who never really explained the rules all at once. So like I'm like kind of iffy about some things and would do what she would tell me to do. So
You would
I
just
can
teach
like
your grandma
give
stuff.
some like groundwork
Yeah.
of like generally how it works.
Well, I think at this point, you would get the opportunity now to play the way that grandma played and make up your own rules, right?
It's pretty form.
Oh, I love that. That's great. If there's other questions, please say them. But also, how can people follow you and how do they know to stay connected with you and your work?
Yeah, the best way is on Instagram, which is my name, Anika.h.Schneider, Schneider. If you're not on Instagram, it's a public profile. I think you can still just look it up. That's the best way. I do have a website, which is also just my name, Anika, A-N-I-K-A, Schoen, H-S-I-U-N-G, Schneider, S-C-H-N-E-I-D-E-R.com. That does not stay as updated as Instagram. So,
Ellen just posted your Instagram into the chat. Even though I also think it's equally awesome you are spelling out your entire social media identity for us here.
You're for sure going to get it.
Yeah.
It's going to be correct. I personally want to just, say a thank you to the life that your parents and your grandmother were able to give you that has influenced this work that we are able to interact with. Without those that come before us, we maybe don't have the grounding that can propel us forward. So, to your family, just thank you for being potentially here if you're here, but also, just for this love that is very obvious in all this work. That was one of the first things that I actually noticed when I saw this piece was the amount of physical touch. And then my first thought was, I missed that. Then my second thought was how often in a lot of sort of dramas around Chinese culture that I grew up with was about, we don't touch each other, we don't say we love each other. And it was so beautiful to see this love represented on the wall. So for everyone that has not had a chance again, please come in here, check it out, get inspired by this lovely Schneider family that has helped influence the work that is present here at SUBAC. I also just want to say, it is really important for y'all to know that as of June this year, SUBAC is celebrating 20 years. So I just kind of want to give a little shout out to SUBAC for continuing to provide such incredible opportunities for diverse, untapped talent to really be able to exhibit, showcase, share their work, their talents in a space that has always invited anybody and everybody into this space. Whether it be the patrons that are here or people that are on the board, the advisory board, the curatorial panel, all the staff that work here, there has never been a moment that I don't think I or maybe anybody else has ever felt unwelcome and or invited into this space. So I, from the bottom of my heart, am grateful that SUBAC exists, that they continue to bring these kinds of conversations to the table. And during a pandemic, literally shifted the game of online representation for artists as a platform to still stay engaged. Literally, I don't know, did you have like 150 of these in 1 year when everybody else was like, I can't get out of my pajamas? So really, truly, please, I invite you to continue to support SUBAC to continue to support the work that all of the staff, the board, the advisory board, and the curatorial panel do to create and present work from emerging artists that are young all the way to their, what some people say is the sunset. I just think that this kind of environment is beyond important for the Twin Cities art scene. And I just, knock on wood, we'll see you in another 20 years.
And thank you so much to the whole Civic. Obviously, this exhibition could not have happened with you guys. You were phenomenal and helping me and guiding me through this exhibition.
Any final questions, thoughts, Allison?
I want to say that Rosa says family is here sending our love. Just because you can't see the chat, I'm assuming one of you knows Rosa and that she loves you.
Hello, Rosa.
Oh, and Julia Pines. Oh, there's Rosa. There's Rosa. She's waving. I'm going to unmute you so you can just say hi. You can, yeah.
Hi.
Mom and Dad here.
Dad. Mom.
It was a great interview. Thank you.
We learned a lot.
All right, that is, I love your parents. That's all I'll say about that.
And you said something about Julia, Allison?
Oh, yes. Thank you for this conversation, Anika. I wish I could see your exhibition in person.
Oh, thanks, Julia.
She can only see it in video, apparently.
The video's very good, though. So.
It's great. It's really
Thank you, Tiffany. Also, Vanna White.
This has been so much fun. Just thank you all for coming. Even those that have only been able to pop in and pop out for a little bit. Thank you for taking the time to share space with us, to learn about this incredible artist, who is going to continue to shift and change the conversation around mixed identity, around loss, around liminal space. And I wish you nothing but the best of luck. And let's keep hiking.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Yeah, definitely. I hike all the time.
Yes, all right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Esther, and thank you, Anika, for a brilliant conversation and always keeping us on our toes with very stimulating thought and some profoundly challenging memory exercises that I would have failed horribly at. But I do love that the painting was described in poetry. And that was really beautiful. And that's it, I guess. Good night.
Thanks, you too, from around at the front desk. Thank you.